Hey everybody, it's Paul Ramsey, and I am meeting and talking with another presenter from the 2017 NGH convention. I'm joined today by Ariel Sherker, who's going to be doing a 2-hour session on the practical applications of listening, hearing between the words to quickly formulate positive and effective suggestions. I am very excited to talk with you about this. How are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, refresh me. We talked once before, but it's been several years. Tell me about how you got into hypnotism in the first place.
I've always been fascinated by the power of the mind and our thoughts and how they affect us. My background, my study is in a field called psychoneuroimmunology,
Oh my goodness.
which is mind body medicine, essentially. I've learned many different modalities, but I realized through all that learning that what it really comes down to, whatever the mind believes, the body is going to follow.
Wow.
So, it brought me back to hypnosis. I mean, I'd actually learned hypnosis when I was much younger just because I was curious about it. But that study brought me back to hypnosis, and finding the practical ways of using it as a therapy was fascinating. So that brought me into it.
Cool. Now, you and I spoke several years ago about another presentation that you were giving, and that presentation was also about listening. It wasn't quite the same as this one, but here you are presenting about listening again. Now, there's a lot of topics and a lot of things you could choose. Why is this one? This seems to be really important to you. Why do you keep coming back to the idea of listening as a practitioner?
Well, you see, I feel like when a client comes in to make a change, when they come in to see me as a hypnotist, I've realized that the client is bringing in the solution. And our job as a hypnotist, as a therapist of any sort, is to help them hear that solution within themselves. So by guiding them, by listening to them and pointing out to them the programming that's already developed in their mind, it helps them to understand where change needs to take place in order to change the behaviors that they've come for. So that's why listening becomes so important, because it's really about hearing your client bringing in the solution already.
Yeah, that's so great. Now, I have an obvious bias because really you just told me what I've always thought. So of
Mm-hmm.
course I'm like, that's brilliant. But but I really do believe that. I really believe that it's a lot of people who get into our profession look for like, what's the secret to figuring out what you should tell them so that you get results? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the answer is so simple. I think they'll tell you if you just listen, right? I really
Absolutely.
believe that.
Absolutely. And it's about, understanding when we listen, what is it that we're hearing? Because, when we speak to each other, even in conversation, take this out of the practice, but even in conversation, we're speaking the programming of our mind without even thinking about it, without being conscious of it. We're just speaking, and sometimes we say the darndest things. But when we say them, they're coming from a place where we believe them. They're coming from our subconscious.
Right.
So, when change is when somebody wants to create a change in their life, it's about catching ourselves in that untruth, in that programming, in the things that we say that might not actually be true to us. And once we hear them, once we bring them to our awareness, they're actually very easy to change. Usually we could look at them and go, really, I don't really think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys, just a little reminder, this is Friday, August 11th at 2 o'clock, and it's a 2-hour session. And if you go and you spend time in this session, you're going to be identifying trigger words spoken by clients that reveal the roots of healing. You're going to learn to list 3 practical questions to get your clients speaking in order to formulate a proper plan of action. I think that's brilliant. You're going to apply 3 practical applications to your pre-talks that will define a clear direction to success. And you're going to construct positive and effective suggestions to facilitate change for your clients. So these are clear learning outcomes that you'll know you'll be getting into if you're going to invest this time and spend this time with Ariel. Tell me, what is the the like, how did you get to a place? I always call it a light bulb moment. How did you get to a place where your understanding of this really leapt forward for you and brought you to a whole other level of results? Do you have anything that you can put your finger on?
Yeah, I would say that, just realizing sometimes the simplest word, like one simple word, when we change it and maybe turn it into the opposite, can change a whole line of behavior. So, I mean, I'll give you an example that keeps coming to mind, but just the things that clients might say, like, and something like a client who once said to me, "Ugh, I can't stop eating chocolate," right? And that comes from the subconscious mind. Right now, she's believing that. And I'm sure it's something that she has said many times before. And every time she says it, she's in a state of believing it. And I asked her at that point, I said, well, you can't stop eating chocolate. Are you telling me that you take chocolate to bed with you at night? And she said, well, no, you know what I mean. And I'm like, yeah, I do know what you mean, but your mind doesn't know what you mean.
Yeah.
So how about if we just realize that actually you can stop eating chocolate because you do it every night when you go to bed, at least. I mean, unless you take it on the pillow with you and wake up with it smushed on your face. But so just being able to change that one word by hearing it, being aware of it and knowing that, yeah, it's not the truth. I can guarantee you that she never says that to herself again,
Yeah.
because now whenever she hears it, she'll be like, oh, that's not even the truth. So
Right.
that out. And it's actually really easy to change it. It's just about catching ourselves in it. So a lot of times I really do help clients to hear themselves in those simple words and point it out to them in a kind of a way, not with any accusation, but just
Sure.
sometimes I use a little bit of humor and I use a little bit of questioning if the situation is appropriate for it. Just to get them to realize within themselves of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I say that to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great example. That's great. Thank you. What do you think the value of doing this? If people come and they spend 2 hours with you, where's the most practical value in knowing what you're going to help people know, that they can sort of, like, when they go back, they can start to implement? Like, where's that value that they'll get from spending these 2 hours with you?
Well, the value is really in the reprogrammed mind that they leave with. But that reprogramming is set with triggers. It's set up so that there are continual reminders without having to think about it, but just throughout their day to day, they'll be reminded to think the positive thought, whatever the trigger might be. Um, so I'll give you another example of a client who also, stated how she can't go into a grocery store, without buying cookies. I work with a lot of weight loss clients, so I get a lot of these, and so I part of her homework on the way home was to go home and go into the shop and actually not even buy anything, just to walk into it and come on out. And as she's coming out, reminding herself, wow, I can do that. I can walk in
Yeah.
and not buy cookies. And look at
Yeah.
me, I'm on my way out now. And so every time she walks into a grocery store, there's a trigger to remind herself that she's capable of doing this, that she's got the strength and the power. It's an empowering process. So
Yeah.
what do they get? What's the most they get? Actually, that's what they get:
Yeah.
empowerment,
Yeah.
self-empowerment.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about one more thing before we wrap up, because I love this, and I think this doesn't get talked about enough. Maybe I'm just not talking to the right people, but in your description, it says of the session, it says hypnosis alone is not enough to create the changes that our clients desire. It is what we do with it that matters. This is another, again, I have a clear bias because this is a big thing for me. Is I feel like in our profession, there's so much promotion of hypnosis, right? Which I get, but it's gotten to this point where it feels like it often gets promoted as if hypnosis just often magically creates these
Mm-hmm.
amazing results in people. And I'm sort of more and more, I'm finding myself leading this what almost feels like a subversive movement to say, can we stop doing that? Because hypnosis itself doesn't create change, right?
I mean, it's not magic in that respect. I can't wave a magical hypnosis wand. You know, in my opinion, the work really happens in the pre-talk with a client,
Yeah.
and the hypnosis becomes an opportunity to just emphasize it, to really bring it home. But it's what they take from that out of the session and how they continue to repeat it within themselves and accept it. But that's all checked out in the pre-talk. I mean, you know, there are no suggestions made that that my client hasn't agreed on, even if it's just a subtle conversational sort of ready to agree on that.
Yeah.
You know, but usually people are good about it once they're ready, once they realize the simplicity of change. You know, it gets that much easier. And when I say the simplicity of change, I mean I'm kind of tired of hearing society say things like change is hard, change takes 21 days.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Change happens like that. As soon as you make that, you know, as soon as you smoke your last cigarette, that's it. Change has
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
You may have thought of it for 21 days. You may have,
Yeah.
you know, but change actually happens in an instant.
Yeah.
So it's really change the thought and the behavior changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. If I put my hand on a red hot stove, I don't need to do it for 21 more days to change the way I think about my safety with, with relation to that object, right? There's like a,
Right.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
have the
Totally.
right to realize something instantly.
Right.
And, you know, as long as we believe that change is hard, well, therefore it becomes hard.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
my job is really helping people to change their own personal beliefs, to challenge their beliefs. And you know, that's our job as humans. We're meant to challenge our own beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. I love it.
Hmm.
All right. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, what's a good way for them to do that?
Well, my website is simple. It's arielhypnosis.com. .ca. Oh my gosh, I'm in Canada. arielhypnosis.ca. If you go to .com, it'll redirect you anyway, but .ca.
.ca. Okay.
And
Okay.
all my information is there. You know, and if anyone is in Montreal, I'm leader of the chapter here in Montreal, the NGH chapter.
Okay.
So I'm aiming to get a group of us together to come down. So at the conference, come by and say hi. Look for the
Yeah.
Canadian flags at the, you know, banquet on Saturday and see. But definitely come on
Cool.
by and say hi. I'm happy to
Oh, that's great.
share.
Good. Good. Thank you so much for making time for me. I'm grateful.
My pleasure, Paul. Thanks for doing this. This is
Oh, you're
great.
welcome. You're welcome. We'll see you in August. Okay.
Excellent. Looking forward.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.